Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome back for another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And you may remember that previous Ascension Parish Sheriff candidate C.J. Matthews made the commitment that win, lose, or draw on the election, he was not going to abandon me. And as you can tell, he is back for his first appearance on Sound Off post the election. So there's no need in sugarcoating what went down in the election. It was 87-13, but I personally don't feel like you have anything to regrets or anything. You put a lot of useful.
None at all, Robert.
And I'm glad to hear that. And so for those who may have thought that, well, okay, after the election, we'll all just go bury our heads in the sand, and that's the last we'll hear from C.J. Matthews, and maybe the last blog post that Robert Burns does about the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office. Folks, I told you beforehand that wasn't going to be the way it is, and that's not going to be the way it is. Now, today, Mr. Matthews wants to talk to us about a couple of items. Number one, some public records requests that he had made from the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, and then I believe we might have one former sheriff who maybe kind of got his shorts in a wad with you about a post we did about some nursing home visits. So I'm going to let you take it away, CJ. I only spent a minute introducing you because I know everybody knows who you are. So welcome back, and you go ahead and lead right on in and
take
it away.
Like Robert alluded to, I had made, in fact, I had made so many public records requests that the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, when I would send them a request, I would get a response back from a law firm.
Ah.
Okay, so apparently the person who, the paralegal over the public records request was overwhelmed.
Okay.
I'm assuming. So I would get a request. I would get a letter in the form of, "Hey, we've got your request." Most of the time, they would say none of this is, most of this is not public records, which was quite often false. And it's going to be 90 days.
Okay.
Now that was one that's illegal because you've only got so many hours, which equates to about 3 days, I believe, to.
Yeah, I'll help you out.
Unless it's we got to go back into the archives and dig them out of a dusty box and or they're on microfilm somewhere. That's not the case with these records. These are fairly at the touch of a button, if you will, on the computer. At least they were when I was there. Of course, maybe they've regressed a little bit.
Regressed, okay.
So anyway, just to give you a little sample of them.
And we'll provide copies of all of these.
Absolutely. And these record requests were dated out. Here's the thing about it. All these requests were made well in advance of the election.
Okay.
Just like back during the June, July, the hot summertime. Okay. So miraculously, one way or the other, maybe you believe in UFOs, I don't know. October 16th, I get 3 responses.
Wow, that would be 2 days after the election.
Exactly. Mr. Matthews, in response to follow up the following public records request, a copy of the current past or both contracts between LA Computech and the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office. I'm just looking for a copy of the contract because allegedly this company did some work or does some work for the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office.
Okay, fair enough.
Kyle Gotro writes back to respond. I write to inform you that this office has no records responsive to your request. I have no way of checking that, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what happens when you ask for public records and then you lose an election. I doubt I ever get anything I request from the Sheriff's Office again.
Sure you didn't didn't have one keystroke wrong on the name of the company.
Yeah. Here's another one, public records request. The correspondence is the follow-up on the following public records request numbered as follows, and you're gonna like this. 1, the internal affairs investigation of Fred Corder. They did a criminal investigation. I can only assume that they're good stewards, that they would also do a internal affairs investigation to list a number of policies that he would have violated as well.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2, any and all communications, emails, or text messages between any and all officials at the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office and any and all officials with the Ascension Parish school system or school board related to the Fred Corder investigation. Emails, text messages, ladies and gentlemen, somebody at the sheriff's office had to be given some information or requesting information from somebody at the school board. Okay? And then also any and all communications between officials with the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office and the 23rd Judicial District Attorney's Office related to the Fred Corder investigation. I have no words for number 3. And the answer to all 3 are I write to inform you that they have no records. So and once again, ladies and gentlemen, I made the allegations. Yes, I did. I provided you with the documentation, the reports written in their own hands from their own employees. And now you've got the paralegal custodian of records, legal affairs section saying that there is no records of any correspondence between the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney's Office relative to the Fred Corder incident?
Well,
and that there's none between them and the school board? Ladies and gentlemen, it just further goes to show you that one or two things are happening. Either your sheriff and the people doing the investigation are inept, because they're not talking to the district attorney's office, and they're damn sure not talking to the school board or the school officials or the principals or the teachers or somebody that may have been a witness there. Or they're lying to you.
Well, and if they happen to be lying, you know...
How will we ever know?
Well, and if you can ever substantiate that these records do in fact exist, the custodian of... Louisiana has some pretty strong public records laws. Enforcement is another matter. However, the statute specifically says that the custodian of records is liable, a personal liability. Personal liability of $100 a day. So, you know, in the event you can substantiate these records exist, it might behoove that individual to cough them up sooner than later, because I don't know where you come from, CJ, but I can't afford $100 a day for a very protracted period. So it mounts up.
I agree. And so if there's any attorneys out there that's willing to look into this, get in touch with Rob, who's got all my info, and I can maybe drum you up a little business. And if you do, that's fine. I don't want to die.
Well, it'd have to be you're the one that made the request. So
that's fine. Well, we'll do the old turnaround thing.
You can donate it to charity, do whatever you want to do. So
absolutely.
But I just want to make sure that I would hope that any custodian of any state agency knows that that is a personal liability and it is $100 a day.
Right. And the last one is the correspondence is a follow-up to the following records request. All file numbers for medical emergencies which required EMS to respond to the jail in 2022 and 2023. I write to inform you that the creation of a record that includes a compilation of file numbers that you're requesting, since a custodian of records is not required to create a record in response. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, all you got to do is press a button and it would spit it out to you, the numbers. And if that's too strenuous for Kyle Gotro, you know, oh well, it is what it is. But once again, you elected him. Those of you that voted for him, well, you get what you pay for.
Well, there you go. And what you may want to pursue, CJ, and you can take this for what it's worth, but I ran into a similar matter, and my response was, okay, that's no problem. You come in, I'm not asking for access to your computer, but you come in, you pull it up, I will sit and observe the records because they do exist. It was amazing how quickly suddenly I got paper records of it, because nobody wants anyone else sitting in front of their computer terminal.
That's the whole thing with the sheriff's office. You know, there was some requests made that you know, they don't exist, and then a buddy of mine who's in the business, he says, okay, so his attorney gets on the phone with him and he says, okay, whatever, I'll see you in court. Well, I'll be damned. 2 days later, they're getting a letter with the exact information that they wanted.
Well,
go figure.
And
it's a damn shame that they play these games like this. Why can't you just be transparent, Bobby? Just be transparent.
Well, and I'm going to provide a link for it. People can go to it if they want, but I have a pretty extensive past history of filing suit against one particular state agency, that namely the Auctioneers Licensing Board. And it covers just about everything under the sun, from public records to open meetings violations. So I've been around the block a few times, and obviously I've made an ungodly number of public records requests, and it's ran the gamut from people being more cooperative than I ever could have imagined, and when that happens, I give credit for it. Beckett Bro's office, St. Martin Parish Sheriff, has bent over backwards to facilitate public records requests that I have made, and I have acknowledged that very publicly. Others, shall we say, Grant Parish, when I made similar type public records requests, and they don't even have online capability for the clerk's office, which is just unfathomable. But I have published the 3-page terse letter that I got back from a Metairie law firm. This is a Metairie law firm handling Grant Parish's affairs. So
imagine that.
When you touch on something that they don't want you getting, you tend to get very terse wording in the reply. So I want to commend you, because filing so many public records requests myself, particularly with regard to LSP, it can be quite frustrating, but you seem to have the patience and the perseverance that you're not just going to roll over and say, oh, well, they said I can't have them, so that's that. And let me just say this.
More than one way to skin a cat.
Well, that's my dad's famous saying, so I assumed it was from the era before ours, but he always said that, look, there's more than one way to skin a cat, son. Well, let me just say this. While it is true that Bobby Weber had a resounding win at 87-13, from things I'm seeing, it's not exactly real tranquil in that office here. Since we're only talking about 9 days ago was the election, and there have been some things to take place. A full-blown press conference that was covered by all of the outlets, where he regrettably had to terminate a longtime sheriff's deputy, and there are some other things that you've told me about, and I'll let you make the decision whether you want to go public with those or not. But it doesn't look like everything's all hunky-dory in the aftermath of an authoritative 87-13 win.
Well, I'm not bothered by it. It is what it is. And I went into this thing knowing that just as well as I had a chance of winning, I had a chance of losing.
Well, sure.
But like I said, it is what it is.
Correct. And
now I hope that the people of this parish, some of the stuff that I've said has opened their eyes. Of course, there's some out there that, they could witness it and they no, that's not what I saw. Whatever, okay? Just pay attention to what's going on, because here's the thing. The firing that you're talking about, I know the guy. Good guy. Okay. That happened on about the 8th or 9th of October, well before the election. So once again, how does that look for your sheriff, who's going to hide this for several days until the election's over with? What else is he hiding from you, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to tell you. If you don't know it, there was a carjacking that happened that Friday before the election. It wasn't reported by the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office. It was reported by an outside news outlet. Okay. Also, there was a shooting the day of the election. Okay. Once again, Sheriff's Office didn't say jack about that, and that come through Miss Chwala. Got some information about it. She put that out, which that was also, my understanding, related to another shooting in St. Gabriel. So, ladies and gentlemen, within 2 years, I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
That Ascension Parish, at least Prairieville and Gonzales, Donaldsonville is probably going to stay sleepy and have the little bouts of violence that they have been having since I've been there. Probably going to be Baton Rouge North.
Oh, wow.
Bobby Weber's going to probably stick around for about 2 years, 2.5 years, enough time to get his
retirement.
Exactly. And he's going to, of cram somebody else down your throat for your next sheriff. So that's what you got to look forward to.
All right. So you're figuring that probably chances are very small that Bobby Weber even serves out this full 4-year term.
That's what I'm getting from the inside, that he is not going to do his full 4-year term.
Ah, okay. Well,
And if me saying this twists the knife in his behind and makes him do that 4-year term and grit his teeth,
so be
my
it.
work is done.
Well, there you go. Well,
Now, back to the deputy. If you'll indulge me just a moment.
sure.
There was a lot of blowback about that. You know, yeah, he beat up his wife and this and that and the other, and yada, 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 you know, yeah, man, he should have just been suspended. Look, ladies and gentlemen, let me cut to the chase. And it doesn't break my jaw to say this, but in this case, Bobby Weber did the right thing.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I can fault him for is that I would have brought in an outside agency to do the investigation, and I would have done it a lot quicker, and I would have done it, you would have known about it the instant it happened.
Okay.
And if from what I have seen, the deputy struck a prisoner who was handcuffed in the face twice. Okay. There is no justification for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
There is none. Sorry, you know, sometimes people's emotions get the best of them, and unfortunately, 15 years into his career, it comes bubbling up to the surface. Now, what caused it? Was it because he was overworked? He hadn't been able to take off because they were short at the sheriff's office, and now they're even shorter. I don't know. Did they not, was there not any social services there reaching out to him to see, you know, hey man, how you doing? How's it going? Is there any of that there now? Or is it, or do we just, you know, he's just working them like Hebrew slaves, you know, get out there and do it, and because it's that time of year. I don't know, I don't have the answers to that. That's something that the men and women of the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, apparently y'all need to figure that out, because your bosses aren't. You know, come up with something and go to them and say, hey, look, we need some help. We need, you know, whatever it is. And look, when you ask for help, that doesn't mean you're weak. You know, not at all.
Sure.
Not at all.
Well, and I guess at least since you did, as you said, it broke your jaw, but you paid Bobby Weber a compliment, at least, although it may have been a few days after the fact, at least it's far, far greater than the situation at State Police, where a gentleman was out of the car, wasn't given an opportunity to exit the car, was literally beaten to death.
Correct.
And it took 1.5 years. Hear what I'm saying? It took 1.5 years before there was ever even any internal investigation, and not to pat sound off on the back, but I find it ironic that I made the public records request for Chris Hollingsworth, or record for discipline of Chris Hollingsworth for turning off his body camera in the arrest and apprehension of Ronald Green, and that's what caused the whole thing to implode. The cat was out of the bag, and then, you know,
Oh my God, they know.
well, yeah, they know, and I did know. And there was a reason I asked about the specificity that I did. I had too many people telling me, too many reliable source troopers telling me that he had turned off his body cam. Now, silly me, I was naive enough to think that if you did that, there's no way you didn't face discipline. Then later, Kevin Reeves, the then colonel, makes the comment that, well, we're not going to start disciplining folk for turning off body cameras. It would set a bad precedent, unquote. So when I said we've had 3 consecutive disasters for our state police colonels, I meant what I said, those 3 being Edmondson, Reeves, and now Davis. But I'd like to transition a little bit into the second matter that we said we'd discuss today. And let me preface that by saying that Mr. Matthews was gracious enough to invite me to a forum about 10 days before the election. And I brought my video camera, and that was my first face-to-face encounter with former Sheriff Jeff Wiley. And I'm just going to say that I was not extended the warmest welcome. And I was also told in no uncertain terms that if you think you're going to come into my parish and I'm going to allow you to videotape this, you've got another thing coming. And I will say that the debate moderators, they were considerably more gracious with me than Mr. Wiley was. But they did tell me that they prohibited videotaping. And so I folded up the camera and I stayed for the remainder of the forum. What I find is unfortunate that I wasn't allowed to videotape is that the responses that Jeff Wiley gave to many of the questions asked causes me to believe that he would be one that will serve as a state representative who votes in a manner that I would want him to vote. But let me just say this. 8 years ago, I don't think you could find a stronger supporter of David Vitter than me. You can go back and look at blog posts. They touted them, including one where I did a little sermonette, a 7-minute sermon. In fact, we'll link it. We'll link that little 7-minute sermonette as part of this feature. And my point being that, well, obviously, I felt like David Vitter had the philosophy that would make him an outstanding governor. I still feel that way 8 years later. Unfortunately, David Vitter was known at that point to have consorted with prostitutes, and the voters let that make the decision for them, because short of that, he certainly would have been elected governor. Now, I'm certainly not prepared to suggest in any manner that Jeff Wiley has ever consorted with prostitutes. But, you know, I hope that he can keep a clean image as he serves as state representative, because we do have to congratulate him. He won. I think his was about 54-46, and he did carry both Livingston and Ascension slightly. He, needless to say, did not do well in St. James, but that was to be expected because his opposition, that's their favorite son, so to speak. But let's hope that he will end up being a good state representative. Based on what he responded to questions, I think he will vote the way I would be inclined to want him to vote. And I just hope that he can keep us a steady, clean image, because, I saw firsthand what that can do with David Vitter. And like I said, I'm not prepared to suggest in any way that Jeff Wiley has ever consorted with prostitutes. But I do know it only takes one little thing like that to destroy a political career, or to destroy a ministry for that matter. Just look at Jimmy Swaggart, go from $110 million a year ministry to all of a sudden the place being a ghost town overnight when the whole Deborah Murphy revelations came about. But I understand you managed to get his shorts in a wad here about that post, that feature that we did a little bit before the election about this whole nursing home incident. So let me shut up and let you take over about the nursing home situation.
That piece that we put out was on the 12th, late in the evening on the 12th.
Okay, that's correct.
And, alleging that, he had violated the law with the electioneering by being in the nursing home. So, once again, it's kind of suspect.
Okay.
That on the 16th, 9:45 a.m., I get a text message from none other than Jeff Wiley, who sends me a screenshot of a letter dated October 13th, which was the Friday before the election, which reads, "Dear Mr. Wiley, we at Gonzales Health Care Center want to thank you for your visit to the facility on 10/5/2023. On behalf of the residents and staff, we enjoyed your visit. We're looking forward to seeing you again at Gonzales Health Care Center." And signed by no one.
Signed by no one.
Signed by no one.
And we're going to put that letter on display. So if it's signed by no one, well, it's not out of the question that the nursing home may have been gracious enough to have provided Jeff Landry with Jeff Wiley, forgive me, the future governor, I didn't mean that little slip to happen, to provide Jeff Wiley with a copy of their letterhead and say, put whatever you need to put on here.
And he also attaches a text. CJ, in your haste to play gotcha and prematurely publicly accuse me of committing a crime, you once again overreacted without facts. As you can see from the healthcare email, at their request, I visited the facility on October 5th, 9 days before the election day. 9. No violation, no story, except you and Burns were blinded by a FB post, a Facebook post, I guess, that made you see what you wanted to see. CJ, I am older and maybe just a little more forgiving than I used to be. So for the life of me, why have you chosen this path of hate and lies is beyond me. You are not the CJ I watched become an integral part of the APSO success through the years. I hope you find your way back to that person. You will enjoy life more. Now, I'm curious as to will you retract your false and malicious accusations on your Facebook page if you would show me a glimpse of the character I used to see in you, Jeff Wiley.
And we'll publish those two texts.
Absolutely.
As well as, putting the letter on prominent display. I can just tell you, and I'm going to have you speak in a moment. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay.
But as a former federal government fraud examiner, you're going to need to produce a whole lot more than an unsigned letter. And I want to make this point about the unsigned letter. My mom spent 2 years in a nursing home right across the street from here at Ollie Steele. And I can tell you, they dotted every I and crossed every T about what they could and could not do. And they even told me, Mr. Burns, last thing we want is you having a sound off right outside of our facility. Because during my mother's stay, the whole Funez situation took place. About $800,000 of misappropriated funds to the LSU athletic, which was all part of the Our Lady of the Lake system, which is part of Ollie Steele. And I appreciated that. But I can just tell you that they know what they can and can't do, okay? And if this individual, whomever invited Jeff Wiley in or who gave him the okay to come in, if it just so happens that it is within that time frame, that's a national franchise. It's not just some locally owned thing. Mm-hmm. So that individual may be in trouble about that.
Which is probably why nobody signed it.
Is probably exactly. As a former fraud examiner, I can just tell you, an unsigned letter like we're about to publish sends up all kinds of red flags, okay? And how convenient that in that letter, whomever drafted it, and I'm not prepared to rule out that Jeff Wiley didn't draft it, okay? How convenient that in it you put October the 5th, okay? Well, you must not have been that excited about Jeff Wiley's. You know where I'm going. Exactly. You know where I'm going. You must not have been that excited because it only takes a few seconds to place those photos on Facebook, and Facebook showed exactly when they were posted. Yep. So unless you want to say, hey, we delayed putting them up for 2-3 days,
and then we delayed sending
the letter, right? And let me just ask you this, CJ.
I've got some oceanfront property for sale.
Well, let me just say this. You have pointed out several times that you worked with the man for, quote, damn near 30 years. Oh, yeah. So you know him a lot better than I do. I've only had about a 2-minute encounter with him. And as I said, I didn't get the most gracious welcome. I'm going to let it go at that. He prevailed. Okay, so he is now state representative-elect Jeff Wiley. Do you think you would even be seeing this letter if he had managed not to prevail?
Like I said earlier, his ego is probably twice the size of this room.
Oh, Lord.
And it's out there publicly. So, I don't know. Maybe he thinks I'm still a deputy at the sheriff's office and he can just talk to me any way he wants to, but that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, in fact, you're now a constituent, right?
And then you tell me that's what you think of me. Well, let me tell you, do you really want me to tell you and the people out there public about what I think about you, Wiley? And all the stuff that I know about you? So, if you want to bring it, bring it.
And you are now a constituent, right?
I am. So, if I was in Wiley's shoes, I wouldn't have sent a text message. I wouldn't have said anything. Mm-hmm. I'd have let it go. And, if everything is, and, then some investigator comes knocking on my door. Hey, we're looking at this electioneering deal. Okay, hey, here, take care of that. It's done. It was all done before. Knock yourself out. Mm-hmm. And when you wrap up with that investigation, give me a copy of it. Mm-hmm. So then I can say, hey, here you go, Mr. Burns. You made a mistake.
Well, yeah,
but I'm sure Jeff Wiley's not going to say, well, I demand that this be investigated to prove my innocence. Hell to the no. You ain't going to do that.
Well, yeah, and unless things are very different at that nursing home than they are at Ollie Steele, everything's camera recorded, So...
You're right.
I pretty well know I'm right.
Well, if that's it, you better get on it pretty quick because they only hold that footage for what, 30, 60 days? Maybe?
There you go. So we can put this matter to rest once and for all. How about we get the footage of when he walked in? Now, they could alter a sign-in log because at Ollie Studio, you also got to sign a sign-in log.
Right.
And I'm just telling you, the fact that there is no signature on that, quote, letter, unquote, is a huge red flag, as I know it would be for any one of my previous co-workers who investigated fraud at the FDIC. And it would cause a much more intense investigation, not just of Mr. Wiley, but of the nursing home. Mm-hmm. And if they did nothing wrong, then put your name on it.
There you go.
Okay? An unsigned letter. There's not even a sincerely, there's nothing on there. Okay? I'm just telling you that is a huge red flag. Okay? Now, if they had sent an email to Jeff Wiley in the immediate aftermath of his visit, and I'm talking about the immediate aftermath, where it said, we just wanted to send this and thank you for coming, and then that's time and date stamped, that's a whole different level of evidence there. We don't have that, okay? All we've got is a letter that could very easily be backdated, and the letter happens to be dated, as you pointed out, the day after the feature ran. How convenient. Now, I think what you've said is wise, that it would have been a whole lot better for Jeff Wiley to just let this go. Mm-hmm. But since he hasn't, I want to thank you that, as you said, you're not going off into the sunset. I once said of Calvin Braxton, who was unceremoniously removed from the Louisiana State Police Commission. I barely got to know him. Okay, I'd only been there a few meetings before he was removed. And I did a video, and I said, look, I barely got to know Calvin Braxton, but I said, in the short time I did know him, the few meetings, and Calvin will probably be watching this feature. I said, I could tell one thing about Calvin Braxton. He did not strike me as someone who was just going to go quietly in the night. Well, I've done a number of features on Calvin Braxton since then, and he said, Mr. Burns, I'm going to tell you one thing right now. When you stared into that camera and you said Calvin Braxton is not one who's just going to go quietly in the night, you never spoke more true words. Now, he's been involved in about a 6-year legal battle with the Louisiana State Troopers Association, as well as a former Lieutenant Colonel Jay Oliphant, and he has spent an enormous amount of money. Calvin's got an enormous amount of money. Way more than I could ever spend on a lawsuit. But my point being, I think you're kind of cut from the same cloth. I think you're someone that isn't going to be inclined to just go quietly in the night.
I'm just seeking the truth, right?
That's it.
That's it.
Sure.
Tell the truth. Be above board and honest about everything, and quit trying to, shortcut and slip and slide and, delay and all this kind of other stuff. And that would make you look a lot better for you just come out and say, hey, look, what you got me.
Well, there you go.
We're screwed up. We're going to do our best to fix it.
And as we wrap this feature up, the debate moderators, and I have no idea whether this commentary was directed at Jeff Wiley or not. I really don't. But I do know as they began the proceeding, you were there, you'll remember it, they said, look, when you're stepping into this public office, I'm just letting you know now, you're going to get irate phone calls, and some of those phone calls are going to come at 1 a.m. or 1:30 a.m. When you've got somebody who's been flooded and they're out on the street and they can see there's no efforts to try to remedy the situation, you may as well get ready for the irate phone calls. So while I will be willing to congratulate Mr. Wiley on his win, I think he will find that being a state representative where you have 104 colleagues is very different from being king of the hill, which is what you are when you are the sheriff of any parish. Doesn't matter which parish, you're king of the hill. And you are basically a dictator. We have seen that. Now, if you can get away with it, and a lot of sheriffs are getting away with it, unfortunately. But let me just say this, over there at that legislature, there's only one dictator. Okay, and that's the governor, and that's a function of the way Huey Long set it up a long time ago. It's still that way, and it doesn't matter whether it's Democrat, Republican, female, male, the governor runs the show. And so I want to wish Jeff Wiley the best of luck, and I'm not saying that, in sarcasm, I mean that. And like I said, I think his voting from what I gathered from that forum, which unfortunately I was not allowed to videotape, I think that a number of votes, and he was endorsed by Lobby, and I will admit I am a business-friendly type blogger, especially when it comes to boards and commissions. So unless he has a personal vendetta against me and finds that, oh, well, if that's what burns for it, I'm gonna do the opposite, which I can just tell you that's not gonna be a good way to go. But you know, I can't control him, and I would hope that he doesn't let his emotions go that deep over things. But I'm just saying that it's not going to be the same rodeo that you've been used to as the sheriff. So I'm going to let you do any concluding remarks, and then we'll consider this a wrap. And I want to thank you again for not just saying, okay, I'm pulling the parachute, Robert, I'm out of here now.
Well, the only other thing I can tell you is this, is that I do know that he's let some go.
The current, oh, okay. He's let some go.
How many more are going to be let go or moved around or shuffled? I have no idea.
But you know for a fact there have been some that have just been flat out?
I know that for a fact.
Wow.
So, guys and girls are still there. I'm praying for you. I'm wishing the best for you. You know, voted for me, voted against me. We still brothers and sisters.
Yeah, sure.
Keep your head down. Take that damn Ripple work shit off your phone if you got it on your phone. That's how Big Brother's watching you, and he knows who you're talking to, and he knows what you're liking on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Who you texting? Get rid of that, and just do your job. That's all I can tell you.
Well,
don't play the politics role. Do your job.
Well, and your point's well taken. If anybody, as we're wrapping up this feature, if anybody says, well, can he do that? Yes. He can do that. Any sheriff can do that. Every employee of the sheriff serves at the sheriff's pleasure.
Yep.
Now, clearly, if you can demonstrate that the sheriff is engaging in discrimination, be it based on race, gender, any of that, that's a whole different matter. But other than that, the sheriff can fire anybody for anything. That's why I was telling you, they're dictator, they're all powerful. And so the answer is yes, he can do that. And all I'll say in wrapping it up is that given that by his own admission on the Channel 9 interview, he said that he was having a recruiting problem, and
To say the least.
And you expanded that to say not just a recruiting, but a retention problem. If you're having a retention problem, flushing a few people in the immediate aftermath of an election, to me, only exacerbates it, but that's just my observation, and I thank you for revealing that, because I was going to leave it to you whether you wanted to reveal that publicly, and you have. So I think people are going to look forward to seeing you, and you may find it's easier from the outside than the in when you try to bring about changes.
Maybe so, and if nothing else, I hope it's opened their eyes.
Sure.
To start noticing and watching these things, and you know, it's always the little things that get you.
Well, there you go. Well, I said it from some time back. You have a standing invitation. I'll let everybody know. He texted me and said, "You free next week?" I said, "Just name the day and time," and we set it in at Monday at 2 o'clock, which is when we started this, and that continues to be the case. You have a standing invitation because I want to, and I know I'm speaking for many, one who is liable to get on this camera and strongly commend you, but it is so rare that you get an insider's look. Things that you described, we know they go on, but it's so rare to get an insider who knows and who saw it and who lived it and be willing to come out and expose all of it. So 8713, I could care less, okay? Thank you for doing what you've done, because I believe you have performed an incredible public service, notwithstanding the fact that I'm sure there are folks that, well, we know it. There are two individuals that we know that have no use for you. And I'll just leave that on them, you know. Sometimes the truth hurts.
Absolutely.
So thank y'all. When I say y'all, we have picked up, and I attribute that to the gentleman sitting here. We have, over the course of the last month, picked up about 70 new subscribers. I don't know for a fact, but I would imagine many of them may reside in and around Ascension Parish. So thank you on behalf of Sound Off Louisiana for helping to broaden our audience. And we will be back with you again soon. I'm going to be doing some more state police features, as I indicated that I would. But whenever this gentleman wants to step in and provide a diversion away from state police, he's always going to have the welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, CJ. And we will look to see everybody again soon for another Sound Off Louisiana feature. Thank you so much.